What's up everyone, welcome to Kai's channel. After a very long delay, finally it has arrived. Which is this, the Sentinel SolGravion from the Gravion series. Now this is the second installment to the Gravion, which I have reviewed it just previously. So if you haven't checked it out, please refer to the link above and see the God Gravion review. Alright, let's get started. So here it is right out of the box. You can see in the left hand side, there's actually the Grand Kaiser again. Not sure on the reason why they put another Grand Kaiser here when there is already one that was from the God Gravion already. Is there any actually difference between the two? Well, we're gonna find out later. And beside that, here are the G Grand Divers. Each individual also has its name just like the one before, and they're lined up right here on the right, all four of them. Alright, moving on to the second layer. So here is the second layer. Now the second layer is pretty interesting. They have this bigger plane, which is the Geo Mirage. It is the bigger version than the one that's shown on the first layer. Now I'm not sure why they have two, but we also will find out later. And then here on the right you have I think it's for the first time they came with a stand. And then at the bottom you have the sword and then the different hands for you to hold the weapons. And then also the antenna. As for the hand, as I recall, in the God Gravion there's actually one set more than it is here. Which there's only two sets right here for the SolGravion. Alright, let's take them out of the box and check them out. So here it is the main body, also known as the Grand Kaiser. The color on it, it's still the matte blue and white, and also with the gold all around it. From appearance, just a glance of it looks almost identical with the old version. But, so is it really the same with the old one? Well, here it is with the old one next to each other. So now that we have both of them next to each other, can you really tell the difference between the two? Well, actually there is a difference. From what I can tell, the shoulder part of the Grand Kaiser, where the old one, it has the black circle near the shoulder joint area, whereas the new one, it's now blue. And aside from that, a very noticeable difference is the face itself. If you look into closely, the new one above the eye, it has this gray line out on it, whereas the old one doesn't have it, which makes the new one actually looks a lot better. So probably the only main difference between the two is the face itself. Aside from that, I really don't see any noticeable difference in terms of appearance. In terms of the joint parts are a lot more sturdier. Unlike the old version, it's actually comparatively loose, so that's an improvement on the new one. But aside from that, I think both of them is actually the same. So I'm not gonna go into details on it for this video. So another noticeable difference that I found out when I was about to transform the Grand Kaiser is that within the arms joint, when you remove the arms for the transformation, I've noticed that the joint part is actually 3 hinges on the new one, where compared as to the old one, there's only 2 hinges, which makes the new one on the arms is a lot stable. Alright, let's move on to the G Grand Divas. So here are the G Grand Divas. Now unlike the God Gravion's Grand Divas, these units right here are now basically in red and gold. Now the red appears in front of you isn't as what I was expecting. I was expecting some kind of metallic red color with a tone of orange so that it will give out a fire feel to it. But instead what we got is that red, a little bit to the orange tone, but it's a glossy plastic red to it. Not something that I was expecting. Now they are the same as the God Gravion's Grand Diva, where each of them are a component of the SolGravion when it's combined. Starting from the front, you have the Geo Mirage. And then next to it, it's the Geo Javelin. And at the back, the 2 jet planes, they are the Geo Caliber and also the Geo Stinger. So here is the Geo Mirage. Just like the old version, it actually resembles the B2 stealth plane, but not exactly. There's actually a redesign to it, and you have now the red and gold onto it, with also the helmet at the back as the tail. Now there's also 2 railgun looking weapons at the bottom of the plane to act as a stand. But other than that, it's very similar to the old one. The gold looks very nicely, matches up with the red, very fine. Now remember what I said when there is actually a cover that goes on top of the Geo Mirage, which is the one right here. And as you can see, there's actually no black hinges on the side of the Geo Mirage, and there isn't this piece right here up in the front. Now the back of this piece is just like this. There's actually nothing else to it, which is why I said it actually goes on top of this and instead of a replacement. This is actually a smart design, which we don't have to make it a waste by replacing a part, and this one only goes on top of it for the sake of combining. So here it is, very simple. Just remove the top piece and also the helmet or the tail, and then just snap it on top of it. And that's it. Very easy to combine, but it looks a lot bigger than before, which is pretty awesome. Here is the Geo Javelin. Now it has become a driller plane instead of a twin driller tank. Now this also splits up into becoming the arm of the SolGravion. And overall it's just red with a little bit of white. And then you got the drill that also doesn't turn. And that's it. It's actually pretty dull, which compared to the God Gravion, I actually like the God Gravion's twin driller tank better. And last we have is the Geo Caliber and also the Geo Stinger. Now both of these are also acts as the legs of the SolGravion, one left and one right, where the left leg is the Geo Stinger and the right leg is the Geo Caliber. How to differentiate between the two? It's the same as I introduced in the God Gravion video, where you have to look at the ankle part to see which direction is twisted in, then you can tell which is which. Otherwise, there's really no markings on it that tells you that. Now aside from that, the coloring on it, it's actually pretty dull. As you can see right now, it's just one big block of red. And then you obviously got some parts of it's gold, and then you got the feet that's completely blue, which lacks a lot of details and coloring in my opinion compared to the God Gravion's leg. So, not liking it too much just on its own. Hopefully when it's combined into SolGravion, it'll look a lot better. So here are the Grand Divas with the Geo Mirage applied the cover onto it. Clearly you can see the size difference that is very apparent. Alright, let's put all these Grand Divas together into one single unit. So here it is, it's the Grand Divas combined into one single unit. Now when it's combined, it's actually pretty heavy and the balance is lopsided, so you really need the help of the stand that it came with in order for it to stand it up. So that's what the display is for. It's not for the robot, but it's actually for this. In this mode, basically what it does is that obviously other than carrying all four of the Grand Divas together, it also serves as another purpose to carry the Grand Kaiser in air. And the two black things on the wings are basically the clips or clipping onto the feet for the Grand Kaiser so that it doesn't fall off. So after combining and putting on the Grand Kaiser, it looks amazing. Now the lock that locks the feet of the Grand Kaiser is actually pretty sturdy as well, and it's locked really tight. Now the lock is locked so tight that you can actually carry the entire thing just by the Grand Kaiser alone. Although it's really not recommended for you to do, but this is just to show you just how tight it is that the lock is on the feet. So let's combine. Elgo form. SolGravion. So here it is, it's the SolGravion after combining. Now the overall, it looks amazing. You got the contrast with the red and blue mixed together, and then you have the gold with it that looks fantastic. Not only that, but the Geo Stinger and the Geo Caliber that actually looks really dull on its own, it now looks actually okay once it's combined. You got the two railguns weapon on the top of the shoulder that's locked into place, that looks great. The mouthpiece is now one single piece instead of having another piece that you can clip onto. And then the hands is now a lot easier to open up than it is with the God Gravion. And also with the rear end parts on the legs, it's now loosened up a little bit that you can freely adjust it so that they can put together easily. Aside from the good points that I mentioned, there are also some of the points that it's not really good. For example, one of the railguns on the shoulder, somehow it doesn't lock in place, so that easily it falls out to the extent. Another one is the shoulder, they didn't improve it, so technically you can't really move the shoulder right now, or there's only a very limited action that you can turn on the shoulder. So it makes the posing a little bit awkward. And then when you're putting the Grand Kaiser onto the Geo Stinger and the Geo Caliber, be sure to be careful with that because for some reason, I believe these two support unit, it's a little bit narrower than it is with the God Gravion. That's why there are chances that it's gonna scratch those two gold points on the Grand Kaiser. So just be careful with that when you're combining. But aside from those, it's actually pretty good. In terms of gimmicks, there's actually not a lot in here. And most of them are actually the same as it is with the God Gravion. Well, first with the new ones, we have the two energy cannons at the back of the SolGravion, which you can actually roll it down and extend it out all the way. And then next we have is the wings of the chest piece, where you can actually move upwards and then downwards. Not sure what's the reason for this because it serves absolutely no purpose. And you cannot take it out like it did with the God Gravion to act as a boomerang. You cannot do it in here. And by moving it up, technically you're supposed to allow more shoulder movement, but in this case the Grand Kaiser shoulder can't really move much, so there's actually no reason for it. And the arms only goes all the way up as you see right now, and the shoulders already blocks it. So not sure the purpose for that one is. And as for the arms, both of them can detach a little under the elbow section, and also on the leg you can actually extend it out for more stability. And lastly, it's the Chojuken. The centerpiece of the chest piece can actually be removed and then combine it with the remaining of the sword and you'll have the Chojuken. Now the Chojuken is almost identical with the one that came with the God Gravion, other than the fact that you have to assemble this one with the centerpiece, and also the coloring within the gold is now red instead of silver. So those are the only two differences. So in my conclusion, how do I rate this piece? To be honest, this piece, especially for the Grand Kaiser, has made some of the improvements, such as the joints now sturdier, the face looks better, and then you have the support units where we're transforming into the fist. It's now used to open as well. Now there are some things that they didn't fix, which is the shoulder piece. I was really hoping that they would do something about it so that you can have a better posing on it, but unfortunately they didn't. And then you have the leg parts that you might scratch the gold piece, so you have to be really careful on that. And the legs, I think you can actually do better on designing it. It looks really dull. One big piece of red plastic on top of the blue feet, which I think they could have done a little more coloring to it so that it makes it look a little different and not as plain. So with those, I would rate this an 8 out of 10. Just because the points that I mentioned that it decreased, but also another factor again, it's the cost. The cost for this, it's definitely not cheap. Now the cost of this is actually 42,800 yen, which is the same as the God Gravion. But unfortunately, this one doesn't have a lot of accessories, nor does it have a lot of hands that you can change into. But it looks amazing just on its own. So that's it for today's video. Hope you guys find it useful. If you liked the video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more videos. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.